Welcome to College Penny, everybody, and today we're going to be discussing some quick SAT tips and tricks so that you can get the score that you want. So let's jump right into it. The first tip is to practice a lot. And I know that isn't rocket science, and obviously it's the first thing you think of when you think about preparing for something. But a lot of times it gets overshadowed when individuals begin to think about just like quick ways, like quick hacks into things. And it's sort of the same thing as like quick dieting hacks. It just never works. So it's always super important to make sure you take out some time in your day to practice. And so some good practice resources would be like a practice book like this. I mean, this is a PSAT book, but like they're available for the SAT too. So different testing companies make these books. They're always a good resource, but they would be second to what I would consider the golden resource, which is Khan Academy. Definitely log onto your computer and check out Khan Academy right now if you haven't done so yet, and make an account. That website in and of itself is connected with the College Board, so whatever content is on there will literally emulate the test exactly. So you're practicing with the best. And while books, sure, I mean, if you really need extra help and you just exhausted everything on the website, then yeah, you might need to turn to a book. But I would recommend checking out that website first. And then, of course, I'm making another video that teaches you how to use Khan Academy, so make sure to check that out next if you haven't done so yet, so that you know how to use this website and how to take the full most advantage of it. The second tip for today is going to be making sure that once you're done taking practice tests, once you're done doing some practice sections, you go back into the answer key section and you check your answers. Now, while some people might be like, well, there's so many questions, like I can't possibly sit there, check every single one and read every single explanation. You don't need to do that. You just need to read the explanations for the questions you got wrong. So let's say I got like 4 questions wrong on like the writing section. Then I want to go back, flip to the back, and then look at what the correct answer is. And then if there's an explanation, great. If there's not, I need to figure out why I got it wrong. So that's one of the most important parts, if not the most important part of this entire preparation session that you're having. When you prepare, you want to make sure you know what you got wrong. You want to be able to fix that and build on that in the future and make sure that that doesn't happen again. So it's incredibly important that you go back, look at your answer, and look at how you can fix that. And if it's something like a concept you don't know, like let's say it was talking about scatter plots and you forgot how to read a scatter plot, then you want to go online or to any resource that you could find and figure out how exactly you can make sure that you understand what scatter plots are and you can read them in the future. And another great tip for that, while you're doing that, is to have a notebook. A notebook that you can use for concepts that you're weak on and the concepts that you need extra help with. So in this notebook, you can record important math formulas, you can record important grammar rules, and maybe even important reading comprehension strategies that you may or may not have heard of before. That will all help you during the test. And what I did was, back when I was preparing, was that I would go through my tests, I would figure out which ones I got wrong. I would basically write down the concept in this notebook. And then I would make sure that when I was like practicing, I target my practice towards that concept or towards that information in the future so that I can get it right the next time. So that tip is going to help a lot. Now, tip number 3. While this might sound kind of cheesy, it's going to really help you with your SAT score. Like, for a lot of people, this tends to be an issue, and that's confidence. Confidence is incredibly important when it comes to this test. While it may be important in daily life as a side thing, if you want to do well on the SAT, you need to make sure you're confident in your answers. I cannot emphasize this more. It's literally going to save you so much time if you can look at the answers and pick one and trust yourself. If you can't trust yourself, you're going to double check and triple check and quadruple check and waste all of the time you could be spending on more harder questions as you move through the test. And again, the test works like this. especially for the math section, where it starts with super easy questions, and then by the time you're at the end, you get like the hardest questions in the entire test. So you want more time for those. And if you keep doubting yourself, if you keep double checking, you're never going to get to the end. So make sure you're confident in your answers. And the only way to get confident is to practice. So again, these tips sort of like tie back to each other. Now, the fourth tip that I have for you guys is to make sure that you have a quiet and clean study space. So you want to have a blank wall, preferably white, so that you don't necessarily get distracted by things hanging on your wall, like posters, or I don't know what else people hang on their walls, like pictures, I don't know. You don't want to have that kind of stuff on your wall. You want to emulate the testing environment. Again, I can't emphasize how important it is that when you practice, you make the most out of these sessions. And that involves making sure you have a clean, quiet study space where you're going to feel like you're actually taking the test. No distractions. You should have no sort of like phone usage during the test. You shouldn't fall asleep during the test. You need to make sure that you stay awake, stay focused, and only take designated breaks. So there's a 10-minute break between, I believe it's the writing and math no calculator section or something like that. So you want to take that 10-minute break, but you don't want to take breaks between each section. Again, that's straying away from the model that the SAT follows. And when you do that, you won't have the testing stamina, the testing endurance to actually go through the entire test focused and ready on test day. So make sure that you take the time to prepare and emulate the test exactly. Incredibly important. Now, let's address the individual sections on their own and little things you can do to really brush up on each section. So for the math section, make sure that you review your Algebra 1 and Geometry concepts if you're already placed ahead of those classes. If you're still in those classes, make sure you take the time to learn some of the curriculum that's offered besides. There's a little bit of trig, so I know that a lot of juniors will be taking trig. So make sure that you understand some of the basic trig concepts because those will be tested on the math section. Now, one part that I feel like is often overlooked by individuals is the problem solving and data analysis parts, which discusses like ratios, proportions, percentages, linear and exponential growth. A lot of times we learn this very early on in our schooling careers and we often forget it, but it's always a good thing to go back and review it because that will come in really handy during the math section. So as long as you know your algebra, your geometry, and trig to some extent, and problem solving and data analysis, you should be good for the math section. Now for the reading section. For the reading section, there's going to be some contemporary passages, but there's also going to be a lot of historical passages. This means that it's going to be Old English, and it's going to be difficult to understand. So this is where reading and understanding older English comes into play. There's going to be some vocab that you may not be familiar with, but if you're repeatedly seeing it being used in these reading passages, you want to look it up. You want to understand what it means so that in the future, when you do tackle another historical reading passage, you know what to do. So that's really the one main tip I would recommend for the reading, and that's really what gets people, because you're like, this sounds like it's from like the 1700s or something, and you don't understand it, but trust me, if you practice reading older English, and if you're reading like plays and stuff, like Shakespearean plays, or like just older passages in your English classes, that will all help too. Now another skill for reading would be just understanding the type of questions that they offer. So make sure that you look into what sort of questions and categories there are. And I'll show that all in the Khan Academy video where they've broken down everything in terms of the different categories and different types of questions there are. So the next section is writing. Now writing, I cannot emphasize how important it is to know your grammar. You have to be the grammar police when it comes to the writing section. There's literally going to be little things that are wrong. And then there's going to be some obvious things that are wrong. Like if you're a native English speaker, you'll be able to recognize the majority of the grammar mistakes. But again, if you're not a native English speaker, then this is where grammar rules really come into play. Like it's so important that you study those grammar rules. And even if you are a native speaker, there's going to be like a few grammar rules that you've never heard of or you don't care to remember because they're just not that important that will be tested on the test. And that's where I was weak, really, in terms of the SAT. I lost a few points there when I took it myself because some of those grammar rules you're just not familiar with, and then you doubt yourself and, you go down that path. So make sure you don't do that. Be familiar with your grammar and practice, practice, practice when it comes to the writing section. Now, the last portion we're going to discuss is the essay portion. There's going to be some of you that will take the essay portion because the majority of selective schools kind of require it and want it. And then there's going to be some of you that won't, and that's completely fine. Like, whatever you need to do for your college. So for the essay portion, if you're in AP language and composition, you've really lucked out because the essay portion is literally just a style essay from your class. So the basic format is just pick 3 devices, 3 paragraphs, and discuss. That's it. And 1 piece of evidence for each. The more complex your vocabulary, the higher your essay score is going to be. The more sort of analysis you do, better essay score. So basically it's just that. And colleges don't weigh it that much because they know this is an incredibly pressuring time for you, like the entire SAT, spending the 3 hours on the test itself, the multiple choice portion, and then spending an extra 50 minutes on the essay. It takes a lot of endurance and stamina. So they know it's not going to be a reflection of your best writing, but some of them still require it. So make sure you're ready for that and you can get at least a decent score on that. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching College Penny, and I hope these tips and tricks help you. So make sure that you check out my Khan Academy video and like and subscribe this video if you want to see more college content. And as always, make sure to comment any questions you have down below, any suggestions, because again, I'm still a new channel. We haven't really reached that threshold where I'm getting a lot of responses or lots of requests. So make sure if you want to see something, comment down below. Okay, bye.